Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And thank you for being here, Director Young. The President's fiscal year 2025 budget exemplifies the point that I've made frequently, that Democrats routinely prioritized reducing deficits without sacrificing the safety net programs that are so important. Point out that every Democratic president since President Kennedy has left office with has left for their Republican successors a better deficit situation than they inherited, without exception, and every Republican administration since Nixon has left for the Democrats a worse situation than they inherited. President Trump was well on his way to fulfilling that trend even before the pandemic. So, Director Young, does the President's budget project a deficit larger or smaller than the deficit he inherited from President Trump?
Well, it is factually accurate that the deficit is $1 trillion lower than when the president took office. It's factually accurate that he worked with then Speaker McCarthy and signed a bill, the Fiscal Responsibility Act, to save another $1 trillion over 10 years. And it's factually accurate that deficits would reduce in his budget by $3.2 trillion, while also paying for the new proposals he has in his budget.
Thank you. Now, the Republican budget has significant cuts, particularly to education. Can you tell me what the President's budget has for Title I, which supports schools serving low-income students?
Well, one, thank you for your leadership on Title I, your leadership on education and labor issues. This budget provides $18.6 billion for Title I. As you know, that is the main federal way to provide resources to public schools in this country. It's $200 million over 2023 levels. That's probably a new level out since the 24 bill was released overnight. But this president's committed to ensuring Title I has been underfunded more than years, probably decades, and we need to ensure that the federal government is a partner, a small partner. Frankly, local taxes, local school districts provide most, but this is a way for the federal government to ensure that some of those communities who don't have high tax bases have more than adequate good education.
The American Rescue Plan provided significant funds, and that was distributed by the Title I formula. There was a piece on NPR yesterday morning showing how valuable those resources were, so I appreciate that answer. Under the American Rescue Plan, the child tax credit was made fully refundable. The result was cutting child poverty nearly in half. House passed a budget that had a child tax credit nowhere nearly as robust as what we passed in the American Rescue Plan. Can you tell me what the President's budget has for a child tax credit?
We would support, and the president has included yet again the full child tax care proposal that mirrors what was in the ARP bill passed at the beginning of his administration, which we saw lead to a reduction of half of child poverty in this country.
Thank you. My district includes a lot of shipbuilding, Newport News Shipbuilding, Norfolk Naval Shipyard, many other small and medium repair yards. What does the President's budget do for shipbuilding, particularly the Australian-UK-US agreement?
The budget complies with the Fiscal Responsibility Act. So Department of Defense complies with that, but we were able to make the key investments necessary to keep our agreements like AUKUS that you're referring to with the Australians. Also, this budget provides $1.7 billion more in Navy accounts in the submarine industrial base to increase submarine production rates and operational availability, increases the Columbia-class submarine procurement funding by $2.3 billion, 31% more than was previously planned. And finally, we include $1.6 billion to procure a San Antonio-class amphibious warship. We also have, knowing this bill had to comply with the FRA, have a future year's budget that shows our commitment to shipbuilding in this country. And frankly, we need the supplemental also to be a companion to the budget, which has robust funding to invest in our submarine industrial base in this country to increase production capability.
Thank you. And the projections forward are very important to the industrial base, A lot of businesses might go out of business if they're not convinced they'll have contracts in the future. So I
Yeah,
appreciate
it's
that.
not just buying the ship, it's increasing the production capability.
Thank you.
I thank the gentleman from Virginia and yield now 5 minutes to my friend from Georgia, Buddy Carter.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Director Young, thank you for being here. I know it's been a long day. I'll try to be quick and concise on what I'm concerned about. And the first thing I'm concerned about is that this budget is 5 weeks late. Now, granted, this is not the only president who has been late with his budget, but I hope that the administration understands that that puts us behind. We want to be on time. Now, granted, we may not be on time, but when we start behind, then we're already behind. That's why I've submitted, why I have legislation called the Submit Act. Send us budget materials, international tactics in time. And what it does is it says that if the president, Republican, Democrat, whoever, doesn't send Congress a budget in time, that they're not going to be invited to give a State of the Union address. And again, it doesn't apply to a Democratic president or only. It applies to any president. So I just want you to take the message back that we really need this information on time. And I hope you understand what I'm coming from that. I'm very concerned about the debt, as everyone is. Right now, we are spending in this country $202,000 every second. The speed of light is only 186 miles per second. We're spending money faster than the speed of light. I know you have concerns about the deficit too. Tell me what your concerns are about the deficit.
Mr. Carter, since you're at the end, hopefully the chairman will let us go back and forth a little, but I have to say, you give me a budget by October 1st, I'll give you a budget that's on time. With all due respect, it puts us very behind on production for budgets when they are 6 months late. I'm sitting here trying to get a readout of a bill that was released this morning that finishes the budget from last year while also presenting the budget for next year. So I think, speaking of process, Mr. Chairman, we all need to work together to find some way to get this back on track. So I appreciate your bill, but it's part of a story.
You can't start your budget for next year until we finish ours for this year?
We actually made a decision not to wait any further.
No, that was your decision though. But you can submit the budget for next fiscal year.
If you talk to the appropriators, it is very frustrating. I've been on that side to get a budget that's frankly out of date. So they're going to get a bunch of tables that are compared to wrong numbers. So it does put us behind, Mr. Carter. Also on debt and deficits, while you may disagree with our tax policies going after higher income earners, it does allow us to pay for our new investments in this budget and have an over $3 trillion deficit reduction path.
And obviously, we disagree with that. That we would refute that point. Nevertheless, let's talk about rulemaking. When you make rules, I believe right now there are 170 regulations currently pending before your office. Whenever you make these rules and approve these rules, do you ever take into consideration the cost of these rules?
Oh, Mr. Carter, that's the whole reason OMB gets any rule. For OMB to get a rule from an agency, it's the agency's rule. So when EPA has a rule, it's their rule. The reason OMB is involved in our OIR office is because we have estimated that it has a certain economic impact. So we think it's important. Administration since Bill Clinton have set the rules for what comes into OMB, and it's because we think economically significant rules should come and have a larger review
Well, let
process.
me ask you about two in particular. I have the honor and privilege of representing the entire coast of Georgia. And up and down the Atlantic seaboard, of course, we have right whales. And there's a rule right now being proposed by NOAA to require boats between 35 and 65 feet to adhere to a 10 mile per hour speed limit, which is going to just crush recreational fishing. It's going to have a negative impact on our ports. We have two major seaports in my district. That's one of the examples, and it's going to impact, in my district alone, 27,000 direct jobs. Nationwide, that number's up to 340,000. It'll have an economic impact of $84 billion. Yet this administration, and NOAA specifically, laughingly says it's only going to have $46 million impact. That's one example of the kind of rule that I'm talking about that has a negative impact on our economy. Another one, I chair the subcommittee on environment and energy and commerce. The NAAQS rule that's being proposed here for particulate matter, that is going to have a devastating impact on manufacturers here in America. What does the administration do with these types of rules? Do y'all look at these types of rules and the impact that they'll have economically?
Absolutely. That is entirely why OMB is involved. Anything that's economically significant, which that rule was, has to come to make sure that nothing's rushed through, that we take public comment, and we made it easier in the Biden administration to walk in off the street and provide comment because we want to hear, and rules do change based on those comments. So I look forward to
Rules, so there are times when you would just, you telling me that, well, I hope that this right well rule and I hope that this ambient air quality rule will be two of those times that they change.
I can't
Gentlemen, as a
comment
result.
on specific rules, but absolutely rules, after listening to
I'll
public
give you the
comment,
final
have-
word. I'll give you the
yeah,
final word.
have changed, and that's the point of public comment. We don't know everything until these rules go out and people have a chance to look at them, and we take in information from the public. Other agencies might have some equities that they don't know. So, OMBOR's role is to make sure we hear from all stakeholders and make sure we're striking the right.
Well, I've given you two examples. I hope you'll look at those for us. And I yield back.
I
Thank
thank
you.
the gentleman from Georgia. Now yield to our final member for comment and question, Mr. Trone from Maryland, for 5 minutes.
Thank Chairman Arrington for holding this hearing, and I'm happy to close it out and let the director and her team be on their way. On their way. Hey, anything else you want to get out? You want to answer to previous questions? You're good?
No, sir, I'm good.
Okay, I'm always here if you need some time. Okay, hey, I was really pleased to see the president's budget set a 25% minimum tax on the wealthiest 0.01%. And raising the corporate tax rate 15 to 21 minimum. Fantastic. Quadruple stock buybacks. Fantastic. And closes the tax loopholes, all the while lowering the tax rates for lower and middle class income. For many years, America's richest corporations have used tax loopholes to pay for lower tax rates than the average American. In 2020, 55 of the largest corporations paid no federal income tax at all, according to the Institute of Taxation Economic Policy. To put that in perspective, if Amazon, just Amazon, was asked to pay the current U.S. tax rate of 21%, that'd be enough SNAP benefits for 1.7 million Americans facing hunger. That's a pretty good trade-off. Amazon can certainly afford that. Jeff Bezos can easily afford it. Good Lord. If it's clear America doesn't have a spending problem, we've got a revenue problem. And that's what you guys are working to correct, and we appreciate that. So can you elaborate for a minute on the impact of raising corporate income tax rates and closing these tax loopholes, cheating loopholes, will have on down paying the deficit? And of course, ensuring that our teachers, our firefighters, never again pay a higher tax rate than the most wealthy.
I mean, Congressman Trone, given your business history and success, hearing your perspective makes one sit up and know that these tax policies asking large corporations and the top 1% and 2% will indeed not impact the investments those companies are able to make in this country. If anything, it will ensure we are able to provide investments in programs that middle class and working families need to expand our economy. And I keep coming back to child care. This is not spending. When you talk about spending, this is an investment to grow our economy, bring more people who now can't join the workforce into the workforce, all through these tax fairness proposals, frankly. We had a OMB and CEA report that said 400 billionaires, the richest 400 billionaires, paid just 8% in their tax rate from 2010 to 2018. Something has to be done, and this president's putting forth a proposal to do that.
Yeah, could be much clearer. Something has to be done. That's absolutely outrageous. And businesses don't make decisions on investment, which creates the jobs based on the tax rate. I've made, in my past life, hundreds of millions of dollars of decisions each year on budgets and to build new buildings, enter new states. And not one time ever in the history of my life did I say, what's the tax rate next year? What you look at is, can you compete? Can you do it better than the other competitor? And with that, can you create a P&L statement that works? And the tax rate, that's after the P&L. It's never, ever once been a consideration. So this Republican jigaboo that, it's a tax rate that's stopping business investment, it's just completely faulty by people who've never run a business. They've never been there. They have not a clue what they're talking about. Child care, as you said, unaffordable, unattainable for many moms, caregivers. Yet the high quality early childhood care, that's how we get equity across our nation. Talk a little bit more about that, because I'm really excited about the child income tax credit, the child care information, also the work you're doing on how we get pre-K everywhere. Then we got to think about the 3-year-olds, how we get them in full day in our public school system, because we know that's going to pay us dividends later. You spend money to bring in more revenue down the road.
We know kids who have access to quality pre-K 3 and 4, their graduation rates go up. They have a better chance of going to college and getting a college degree, which we still believe is a pathway to middle class. And those are facts. And again, it goes back to a budget that tries to grow the middle class, grow the economy, making investments where it makes sense. And we can pay for all of those investments. We can send kids at 3 and 4 to school. Now, my child decided to be born a month late to go to pre-K 3, so I'll be paying exorbitant child care fees for another year. But parents should have access to affordable child care. We have a proposal that says some parents shouldn't pay more than $10 a day to quality affordable child care. We need pre-K. We need a full suite of solutions. This budget provides it.
Director, thank you for all your hard work, and God bless. Take the rest of the day off, hopefully.
Another hearing, sir.
I figured. I yield back.
I thank the gentleman from Maryland, and we are now at the end where I want to make just a few closing comments. I know you've been here a good bit of time. I appreciate you taking the questions from my colleagues. And you are a good person, and I like you, and I like working with you. As I said at the beginning, I like you. I do not like the president's budget, and I hate what I think the budget would do to this country, which is more of what has happened the last few years. I don't think Republicans have all the answers, and I don't think there are things that Democrats propose that should be dismissed out of hand. And I think most of the big problems, quite frankly, will only be solved when Democrats and Republicans get in a room, hash it out, find consensus, which is why I'm so interested in a bipartisan fiscal commission. I don't have much hope in this institution. It's a long shot. It may not work, but the current dynamic isn't working either. But we do at least have this sort of belief system, as I said, this set of policies that reflect the values of my Democrat colleagues, who have the best of intentions, and my Republican colleagues. But here's one thing we can't disagree on. And so the American people can look at the president's budget, see the belief system, and vote accordingly. Same way with the Republicans' balanced budget blueprint. So it's there for everybody to see now. We've marked ours up. The president has submitted his. This is how it ought to work. The people will make those decisions in November. But here's what's not for debate. The unsustainability of the path that we're on. And this is what I want to say to you from my heart and with the deepest concern for our country's future. Both parties have contributed to the mess we're in, no doubt. I do not give my Republican colleagues and my party a pass for where we are today, where we're going, which could be catastrophic. I don't have to recite the numbers to you. Ms. Young, you know them well. But CBO just came out with a 30-year projection. So they gave us the $20 trillion that will be added to the debt with current policies over 10. We're already paying more, almost $1 trillion in interest, more than we pay in defense for our national defense. But in 30 years, it's going to be about $150 trillion. And the share of that per family will go from about 250,000 to $1 million. And our annual deficit, which is almost $2 trillion now, will be over $7 trillion in 30 years. And think about that, Mr. Trone. Just think about that as a business guy. We're going to spend 75% of our $7 trillion in what we borrow to fund this government on interest alone, not on a safety net, not on sailors and soldiers, not on climate policy and programs. I mean, pick your thing. Let's debate those programs. Let's debate those strategies to solve problems that the American people believe we ought to be responsible in doing. But we got to pay for this. Because, and I'm just quoting you back, and this isn't one of those to put it back on you, but you made a good, I think it's a statement that a lot of people believe here. We don't tax citizens on the debt. Yeah, we tax our children on the debt. Debt is a deferred tax on our kids. And it is not only not courageous, it's immoral for both sides to leave us on this unsustainable path. So just find it in your heart and push hard while you're still serving our country and this president to encourage your colleagues on the Democrat side, as I encourage my Republican colleagues, to get in a room, so to speak, hash it out, and let's save this country. Because if this tips into a sovereign debt crisis, I believe that it will undermine everything good about the country. Everything. The greatest economy in the world, the greatest military in the world, our leadership in the world, and most importantly, and I know Mr. Trone believes this, our children's future here. That's why we're here. So I appreciate Mr. Trone, I appreciate my Democrat and Republican colleagues, and I appreciate you and your service. So thank you for being here. Thanks for committing so much time to the Budget Committee. God bless America, right? God bless America. And with that, we have just the questions. Members can submit their written questions to be answered later in writing. Those questions and your answers will be part of the formal hearing record. Any members who wish to submit questions or any extraneous material for the record may do so within 7 days. And want the record to reflect that Mr. Trone is still here when the buzzer goes off and the gavel goes down. With that, the committee stands adjourned.